Hi, everyone. This is Norman Kochnick here for Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochnick. I'm very leisurely today, and I've got an amazing person here who we've had to do a lot of work together with, thanks to Aparna Saini, and we've been able to get Barry online. He's in his very relaxing state in Bowral, aren't you, Barry?
I am. I'm in Bradman country. His ghost is everywhere here, but so I'm in a cricket town called Bowral, 100 k's south of Sydney.
And I must just quickly talk more about Barry. I think I've given you introductions already twice, Barry, on the previous two reports in great length about your close to 70 odd years, 7 decades of cricket involvement. In particular, your coaching is world renowned. I mean, Adam Hollyoak, who was on previously, immediately thanked me and said, "Great to have Barry on. I wish I was there. Send my regards." I've spoken to a whole host of people, even Alan Border. I tried to get Alan Border on today. He wasn't available, but he has spoke highly of me. Mark Taylor, of course, the Wars, and obviously Clark, 4 captains that you've had. I mean, really, the world should know about you. And in particular, we're going to talk about your book. I know it's not ready yet, but I'm sure over the period of the year we'll get updates from you, and we'll get you on.
Right.
And you have to meet Buria Majunda. Buria, of course, he's written a whole host of books. I've actually got one of his books right next to me here. If I just lean over,
right.
He's written this book here, Sachin Tendulkar.
Oh yes.
He wrote that book, the so-called "Playing It My Way," my autobiography. That was actually penned by Buria, and he runs a so-called museum in Kolkata. He's also written this book here called 11 Gods and a Billion Indians. 11 Gods and a Billion Indians, which 11 Gods being the 11 of the cricket team, of course.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
and I'll actually come down and see you one day. And I'll bring. It says the on and off the field story of cricket in India and beyond.
Oh, I'd like to read that, but my book's not going to be about me. It's not an autobiography. There will be a little bit about me, but it's mostly off the field stuff. Like when I worked for Kerry Packer for 5 years, coaching Jamie in the back garden. Lots of stories of Packer, I have actually been involved for 7 decades. I was 15 when I turned professional with Essex. Trevor Bailey found me playing school cricket, and I'm still coaching on a Monday night. So that's 7 decades of either cricket or coaching. I've coached 26 Australian cricketers and, strangely enough, 3 Indians, Rahul, Manish Pandey, and I think it's Nair, the other one. I coached them in Bangalore about 8 years ago when they were much younger. But so I have claimed to have coached quite a number of 30-odd Test players in my coaching career.
But they're not just cricket players. They're Test players. A number of them are captains. It's not plenty of people can brag to have coached somewhere, but they're not just simple players. And I mean, look, we'll talk a little bit about your obviously going back a little bit. But in 1970, when you first came here, you emigrated to Australia. What made you consider coaching, and certainly indoor coaching? What possessed you to do that?
I worked for a fellow called Alf Gover in Wandsworth, who had the first coaching facility way back in the 50s. It was actually Gaslight. Peter May, Jim Laker all went there as young men. I worked for Alf Gover, and I quite enjoyed passing on my little bit of knowledge. And so I'd done some in England, and I came over here to play for Mossman. And the reason, well, 2 reasons I'm here. One is I lost my nerve for flying. Couldn't fly 30 hours back in 1970. I just couldn't get on a plane. And secondly, my wife's Australian and wanted to see her mum, who lived in Sydney. So they're the 2 reasons. And I've been here now 50 years. I've only been home once to London, and I didn't like it. It had changed since my younger day. And so I'm really a posse. I'm half Australian, well, more than half Australian, 50 years in Australia, 23 in England. So that's why I'm here. And I've just I had the first indoor coaching facility in Sydney, and that
Where
was
was
for
that exactly? What was the streets
right.
again?
It was right next to Kerry Packer's 54 Park Street. It was on
Right.
the corner of Park and Kent, and nobody had thought of indoor, but it was a great help. There was no daylight saving in those days, so players who were playing grade cricket, which was the next to state cricket, which was the next to Test cricket, they had 2 nights to practice, Tuesday and Thursday. They finished work at 5:30. It went dark at 6:30, even in the depths of summer, and so they hardly ever got any daylight practice. So when I opened these 4 nets, I found I had Randwick with young Mike Whitney. He was there, and a lot of grade players just came for the practice. But I also coached the Borders and all, the War brothers, the Lee brothers. Anyway, about 26 of them I coached, but not in their older era, when they were aged between 12 and 16, roughly. All right.
But
And
that's
that's it. I've
an
done it for
amazing thing.
50 years.
They were not household names at that stage. They were just young kids.
Yeah, oh, yes. I coached nearly 20,000, somebody worked out. So I haven't done that well. I've only managed 26 out of 20,000. That's not much of an average, is it?
Oh, I think it is. I think it is.
Yes.
We're not just. I mean, you would have had thousands that would have been extremely happy with what you did for them, and thousands that progressed and made themselves better cricketers. So that's the true figure. It's not 26 out of 20,000. It's probably more like 5 to 10,000 out of the 20,000 that would talk highly.
Yeah. Well,
So
they played grade cricket, of course. I would have coached a lot of grade cricketers, and the man who's writing my book, actually, or helping me, owns the Bradman Cottage, and has just spent about 2 million bringing it back to exactly how it was when Bradman slept there. I've actually slept in the same bed that Bradman slept. It hasn't affected my batting. I'm just as bad, but I have actually slept where he slept before he went off to score 100 for St George. Anyway, he's Andrew Leaming's his name.
I know Andrew. I know Andrew very well. You know that, Barry.
Anyway, I coached him from the age of 11, I think it was, to 16. He made a lot of money in finance in America, and he says a lot of it is due to my cricket coaching, which is also life coaching. He said he attributes a lot of the millions he made over there. He wrote a best-selling book. He puts a fair bit down to my help, if you like, between 11 and 16. And there's a few around like that, actually.
So you and Andrew are working together on this book?
Yeah. He's
how close is it to completion?
Sorry?
How close is it to completion?
We're going to bring it out as the English team arrives, around about September.
Right. Excellent.
So I shall come back to you before September to tell you all about it.
Oh, look, I'm excited because the fact that you're involved and Andrew, you've got a double whammy of success there, because Andrew is very articulate, but he's also very accomplished in his understanding of cricket. And you have so much to say about what has happened in the 7 decades. It will be spellbinding. So our viewers will definitely get a hold of that. I'll be talking to Boria Majunda. In fact, Boria might bring you onto his platform as well, Sports Today. And
lovely.
we'll get now, just to let you know, Sports Today is an affiliate to India Today, and India Today is probably the leading network in India currently. So India Today are the overriding body of India Today Media, and then they have below them Sports Today and another channel which is more in the native languages of Hindi and the like, called Sports TAC being Today. They exist. There's also other outlets such as ABP News, and Kuntal Chakraborty will be able to help get it on that platform. And then there's the likes of Extra Time with Derbyshire Sen and my platform, and we'll give you plenty of. I've been very privileged, Barry, over the last few months, because the Indian press haven't been in Australia. I've actually had them in there. And I've actually brought Boria to Andrew's house down there.
Oh, really? He's been here with
52
Brad.
Shepherd Street.
Because you've got to remember, my association with India is pretty close. I went on a tour in 1961. I toured India 3 times with the MCC, twice with Commonwealth teams by Alf Gover and Ron Roberts. I loved India, even though I didn't get millions of wickets because the pitches didn't suit me, but I did score quite a few runs. I was a reasonable player, a spinner. But I loved India when a lot of people wouldn't go. For instance, Fred Truman, Brian Statham, Alec Bedser never, ever toured India. They didn't want to go because the pitches were too slow for one. The food was a little bit dicey in the early 60s. They didn't have the beautiful hotels that they now have, the Taj Group and whatever. And it was a tough tour. But the cricket was good, and I had so many friends. Jai Simar was very close. Nawab of Pataudi, I went out with him so many times. He was a lovely, lovely man, even though he smashed me for 203 with one eye just after the accident. They got about 500, similar to what England got. And where was that? That was in Delhi, and I don't think I beat the bat once all day, but although they were terrific friends, and I have dined in nearly every Indian cricketer of the 60s in their house. They always invited you back for mum's cooking. So that's probably why I'm so fat now. But
well, I'll use that as my excuse too.
But I loved it. I loved the people. I loved the crowds. I mean, I can remember distinctly playing in Eden Gardens, and back towards the pavilion, just to the left, the same as it is at the SCG, is the ladies' stand, right? So identical position to the SCG. And if you were lucky enough to field in that half of the ground, the colour was amazing, because in those days, I have been to India more recently, most ladies wore saris, right? Nowadays they're all in jeans and t-shirts, but from what I remember of recent visits. But it was so colourful, even though the cricket was boring, and Sardesai had scored about 8 runs before lunch, and it was a bit boring. You had this to look at, and it was sensational. It really was the prettiest ground in the world, just from that angle.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
No, I loved India, and I have done ever since.
So tell me, okay, so the reason why those people didn't travel, it was Alec Bedser and the like, was because they were deemed to be amateurs, and you were deemed to be a professional, correct?
No, that's not quite right. No, Alec Bedser wasn't an amateur. Yeah, mostly amateurs didn't go. You're right. But no, those two, Truman and Bedser, were both professionals, but they did not want to risk either their health or bowl on absolute turning pitches. You got to remember, when I played against India, Jai Simar, who was an opening bat, used to open the bowling, and I think you're quicker than him. He just bowled gentle swingers, and he bowled one over, and then in those days you were allowed to rub the ball in the ground. And so the spinners, Prasanna and that lot, and Chandrasekhar, got hold of the ball, and they just rubbed it in the ground, got rid of the sign. And I think you'll find a few times Jai Simar bowled one over to start the match, and then it was spin the rest of the day. That's how much the pitches turned.
Okay, so, but still the concept of professional amateur, the relationship with that. The fact
that, yeah.
So the reality is an amateur was so-called, I'll use the word statesman loosely, but someone who didn't look at cricket as a profession in terms of payment, but they were of a certain class in England. Is that the way you would look at it?
Yeah, it was originally. Then it got... See, Colin Cowdrey was responsible for changing it, because Colin went to Oxford, didn't do all that well. He worked for his father-in-law at a place like David Jones called Cheeseman's in Kent, but Colin and work were not a match. He just lived for cricket. His MCC, his dad must have known when he gave him those initials, because Colin wasn't getting paid much, and he was an amateur, so he wasn't getting money from cricket. He wasn't getting money from a job. So he was the one in 1961-62 who said, right, we should all become players. We'll all get the same money. There will be no more amateurs. We'll play. They can play if they want, but they've got to be good enough to get in, but they'll just get the same pay that we get. So Colin was the prime mover because of his own situation, basically. But it should have happened. I played in the last Gents versus Players. That was a real throwback to the posh old days. The gents, of course, were the amateurs, and we were the players. And if you played at Lord's, the scorecard, which they sold throughout the day, I was B.R. Knight, my initials were in front. Trevor Bailey, who was an amateur, was Bailey T.E.B., right?
So
Simple
they
as that.
reversed the order of the name.
That's right. So anyway, you could tell an amateur immediately from looking at the Lord's, scorecard. But no, it was difficult because we had a lot of players at Essex. Charlie Williams, who really wasn't that good, was a school teacher who only played in August during the school holidays. He pushed out a young professional every August. It wasn't the greatest system in the world, I can tell you.
No. But I mean, of course, to me, I always have that recollection of what you told me in a previous interview 3 or 4 years ago. And more importantly, if you go to the SCG and you see the so-called away dressing room, they had those two distinct doors, one where the professionals would come out and the amateurs would come out the other door.
I forgot to tell you that. Yeah, most grounds in England had a second exit. That's where the players came out, but generally the amateurs came through the members. So let's say there were 3 amateurs in the team at Sussex, Dexter and 2 others. He'd walk out of the front of the pavilion while his mates came out from way down to the left. Also, he had a room upstairs in the Hove Pavilion, Sussex Pavilion, and he had an intercom down to the 9 other professionals, and he'd ring down and say, righto, you go in next or whatever, you know what I mean? So he didn't even change with his own players. They had separate dining rooms at Manchester, Old Trafford. The amateurs used to go to a different dining room to the plebs, if you like, the players. And but that's what the system was. You couldn't argue with it when you were young. You fitted in or you didn't play professional cricket. So, but that stopped in 1962, I think, thanks to Colin.
Wow. Just quickly, we're getting some people on the side of this discussion, Barry. People are able to ask questions. And I've got one for you. What's your view on Virat Kohli as a player?
Oh, the best at the moment, I think. Technically, remember, I'm a coach and I coach technique. Would I teach someone how to bat like Steve Smith? I don't think so. Even though I had a little bit to do with him in his early day, I couldn't possibly teach a boy to do all that movement and get his head steady in time to face a delivery from a fast or slow bowler. But Kohli, I don't think there's a weakness. He hooks, he doesn't seem to worry whether it's fast bowling. He's obviously a great player of spin because he plays in India and he was brought up on turning pitches. He seems to have total control of his mind when he's batting. He's got a zone he goes into regardless of how he chips at people. And I don't think he comes out of that zone from the moment he walks to the pitch to the moment they get him out. Now, I think I've been involved now 70 years and he's one of the top 3 as far as technique is concerned. Len Hutton, Colin Cowdrey, Kohli. That's how it goes.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yep.
So what about, I mean, it wasn't in your era. Well, in partly you would have. Did you see Don Bradman play at all?
I played against him in his last game.
Oh, my God.
I played at Canberra in 1962. Menzies, the Prime Minister, had talked him into coming out of retirement after 12 years. I was in the gully when he played first ball from Brian Statham, was a short one outside off stump. He smashed it past my right foot at about 800 miles an hour. That was a beautiful cut shot. Next ball, same ball, got a bottom edge onto his off stump, so he was out. We all shouted out. I think Alan Davidson shouted out from the pavilion to the umpire, "No ball, you idiot," because 20,000 people had come to watch Don. 19,800 had come to watch him and 200 to watch us. And it was such a deathly Paul came over the ground, but Ted ran up to Don and said, "Come on, stay in." He said, "No," because of his quickness. He was already well past mid-wicket on his way, peeling his gloves off. And that was, we might just as well have finished the match at that point. I actually outscored him I got 33 and he got 4. So I've outscored Bradman in the match.
Well,
Not serious.
I'm sure you've said that a few times at bars and restaurants. You've just dropped that in the conversation, have you?
Yes, I have. Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. But no, it's wonderful to be on the same field. And just looking at that one square cut, I could tell that he was something different.
So 1962, he was 54.
That's right. He'd been 12 years, I think, retired. First ball,
Amazing.
crashed, 4 runs. And anyway, it's a shame he didn't get 20 or 30. I would have loved it.
It's interesting because Jeff Thompson tells a story about his experience with Don in Adelaide. There was a certain doctor that was part of the team makeup, and they had on the day off between and during the test match, they would go to this doctor's place in Adelaide. And one day Jeff was there with a bunch of people. I think it was actually against India, and Don Bradman just turned up, and there was some young whippersnappers out there, and Don was fully dressed in basically a suit with black shoes, totally inappropriate for cricket. He was aged 70, so this was 1978 or thereabouts, 77, 78, and they were bowling to the young kids were bowling to Bradman. He was middling them all over the place, and then Jeff Thompson said, "Well, I can't have this. I'm going to have a go at him." So he bowled slow. He was hit. Bowled faster. He was hit equally as well, and Jeff still talks about that day that he was in awe of that, especially not just because he was 70 years old, but also because it was Don Bradman and he lived up to all the expectations he could have ever had and beyond. And actually, to have Jeff Thompson in awe of a batsman is pretty bloody rare, I would say. I don't think
Yes,
I don't think Jeff would ever say
with leather shoes on and no gloves.
Exactly.
No, I mean, he was something special, obviously.
So, okay, look, I'm just wanting to talk this, Barry. We're going to get you on again. This is not the one and only time because I've got a lot of matches during the series that we can reminisce about things as well. In particular, and as I said, we'll have a connection, and I know Andrew very well as well. As your book pans out and develops, we'll get you connected to both my platform and the various ones I mentioned because that would be fantastic. But look, let's just centre on this game now. So England 2 for 52. I'm just bringing the score. Let me get the score up. They've lost 2 wickets. Unfortunately, Rohit Sharma got out to a good ball. I always love watching him bat. What do you think of Rohit Sharma?
Gill's out, is he?
Yeah, Gill got out, caught it mid-on. Anderson caught him off Archer. Archer's taken both wickets, which
interesting.
He's taken both wickets. I mean, Archer, I thought he would do not as well because I thought that anyway, the measure of
it doesn't look to suit a fast bowler very much, does it?
No,
from what I saw. But see, unfortunately, I can't see this going any way but a draw. Really, if India will have to bat pretty badly twice. Remember, I played on that same pitch when Buddy Kundaram, who was a number 8 wicketkeeper batsman, scored 185 off us. I know just how flat that track is.
Right.
And so if they can't, bat for 40 wickets, I'd be very surprised. They'll have to bat badly, or England will have to bowl out of their skins. I don't know how they're going to do it on that pitch, but
no, you'd think with
I think with draw already. What? Sorry.
What do you think of the 2 spinners though, Leach and Bess? What have you seen of them?
Well, I don't think they're Laker and Locke, are they? Let's be fair. They seem all right. They're steady would be my, just watching them on telly, my assumption. They're not going to tear the ball from outside off stump past leg stump as an offie or the other way around for a left spinner. I mean, it depends how badly India bat. India should be able to play. They play that many spinners over there in their normal cricket. I'd imagine they should be able to handle 2 finger spinners on a pitch that is turning a bit, that it's not leaping up in your face, is it? So I would like to bet a fair deal of money on the draw.
Just quickly on the batting of Joe Root the last 3 matches, having scored 228, 186, and another 218. What do you think of that?
Oh, well, he was, when he was 15, 16, just like Ponting, he was picked as something special in the coaching realms. I knew about Ponting when he was 13, 14 from reports. Same with Root. And so he's always had a lot of class. He's another very good technician. I don't think he's quite as good as Coley, but he's not far off. And he plays very straight and on low, slow wickets. I think he's. I'd be interested to see what his performances in Australia versus other countries. Don't know that he's actually set the world alight in Australia on the bouncier pitches, but certainly India looks to suit him beautifully.
He does. He apparently there's a so-called Joe Root Academy. I'm not sure whether you're aware of that. I don't know much about it.
No.
But I'm finding out about it now. There's a fellow called Derbyshire Sen, who's a very good colleague. He works for Extra Time. It's one of the platforms I'm talking about, which is excellent. He's talked about this Joe Root Academy. I'm going to try and find out more about it. And I might even, if it's a StreamYard situation like this, I might get you on to hear what they've got to say and comment, because Joe Root apparently has spent a lot of time with the sweep shot, exorbitant amount of time practicing the sweep shot. To become a part of the actual academy is to be well versed on the sweep shot, because I'm using it
ready for India. But let me just interrupt you there. When I played, every single team that I played against, county team, had a great off spinner. Tipnis of Middlesex, Mortimer and Allen of Gloucester. If you couldn't sweep in my era, you were caught bat pad at Bristol or wherever, because the oval spun from ball one, and unless you could sweep, I don't think there was a county player. Mike Smith was probably the best. I was pretty good, actually. I was quite a good sweeper myself, and that's the only way you can survive. If you kept playing bat and pad on these turning wickets with a great, I mean, really, John Savage, even of Leicester, massive spinner of his off spin, really should have played more for England. Biggest offie spinner I think that played ever. And he, on the Leicester pitch, was lethal. So if you just kept pushing forward, you were going to get a bat pad. So he thought, blow it, I'll get down on my knee and I'll sweep that short leg out of the way. So you had to sweep in my era.
All right, look. So Barry, look, this is a precursor to, and of course, I'm asking you politely whether you want to be more involved, because I think,
of course,
if this series is obviously 4 tests strong, people in India would love to hear you. I've got lots of comments coming through, and as they begin to hear more and more about you, the crowds will grow, and genuine cricket lovers who want to know genuine detail about everything about the skills of cricket. And I want to talk to you more about your Bangalore experience, but so how did that come about?
No, there was somebody over here was acting as an agent for me in India, trying to get me a little bit of coaching, and he came up with this. They needed 3 player. There were 70 boys. I've forgotten the Naian University, Naii University, 30 k's roughly south of Bangalore, had 70 boys. I think it was aged from 12 through to 23. And they needed 4 coaches, so I took a fielding coach, an athletics coach from the the academy in Canberra, and what was it, a fielding coach? That was it. No, just the 3 of us. Sorry, and we coached there for nearly a week, and I found out later from looking at the list that I'd coached Rahul, Nair and Pandy. I didn't know at the time because they were only young, they would only have been 17, 18. That was about 8 or 9 years ago. And that's how it came, just a connection in India who found that there were 70 boys looking for coaching, and I was the technical coach, obviously. And it was a very nice stay. Stayed at the university, which it wasn't until the 3rd day that I realised that I hadn't had any meat. It was a vegetarian. No, truly, I had no idea I was staying at a vegetarian university. I said, "Oh, this is nice bacon and egg." One morning he says, "Not bacon, that's mushrooms." So I really was 3 days thinking, and the food was lovely, but you can do without meat, obviously.
Yeah, the so-called, we'll call them meat substitutes. They can have the same flavours and approaches like the tofu.
That's lovely. But no, there was some extra. I said at the time, when I left, I said, out of that 70, there were 50 boys, to me, who have the talent to go further. I'm not saying how far, but they could certainly have gone a lot further. And then I thought, there are 2 billion people living in this country, that the competition to get in the Indian cricket team is like no other. If you get in the Indian cricket team, you have beaten an awful lot of players.
Exactly. So it was Manish Pandey, it was the likes of KL Rahul,
and Nair. I've forgotten his
and
first
there.
name.
Is it?
They've all played. Nair got 300, I think, in one test.
That's right.
And obviously Rahul's still in the one day. I don't know what's happened to his test playing. And Manish Pandey plays one days, doesn't he?
Yeah, but Rahul's an interesting one because he's gone into a keep. Was he? Do you remember him keeping when he was young?
No, he wasn't a keeper when I had him. No, I don't. He was just a batter. I don't think he bowled at all, hardly.
So yeah, he's been keeping obviously in that one day team. Yeah, and
it seems to have affected his batting though, because he's not in the test now, is he?
That's bizarre because he was actually one of the main players in the test team.
Yeah, he was,
and he looked to be a certainty. Yeah. I don't know what's happened there.
I don't know what's happened. Perhaps you can find out for me from your Indian.
I'm going to try. Well, right. what I'll do is on a future. Let's just say today's day 3. Tomorrow is day 4. Post match. Now it's a little bit late. It's like 10:30 p.m. Because obviously India is later. On that show at 10:30, I'm going to have Jeff Thompson.
Oh yeah.
And I'll have another set of Indian and English guests. Simon Willis, do you know Simon Willis?
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's involved in high performance coaching at ECB and has some to do with Sri Lanka.
I don't know. No.
Okay. Well, if you're up to it, 10:30 tomorrow, we can get you back on.
10:30 when I was young was an early start to a night. You know, Fred Truman's nickname for me was Owlie. You know, like an owl. I came to life after dark.
Well, then we might have to draw upon those experiences that you had back then as an owl to come at 10:30. Which 10:30 is obviously 5 p.m. in India, and that's clearly that's the time. That's the way they normally finish the day's play around that time. So in and around 10:30,
I'll be there.
All right, and the partner will be there too.
And I think if England or India happen to win, then I owe you $10, right?
Okay, all right. Or just a coffee down at barrel. Because I'm actually what I'm doing as well, Barry, to let you know, I have a series called a cricket fan or cricket tragic, effectively, on the land. And I've done already one with a guy called Frank Marley, who's down in Canyon Lee near you.
Oh yes.
And you know Craig Hawkins very well, don't you?
Of course, yeah.
And Craig's going to have one done at his property, and is it Meadow? I can't pronounce it.
Medway.
So I'm going to go to Medway and spend time on his. We'll have a bit of cricket at the backyard there. We can get you to go there. Hopefully, when Andrew's in town, I'll go to his house. Johnny Dunk, who was, have you heard of John Dunk?
Yes, I've heard of him, but I don't know how.
He's involved with the SCG11, but he's also he was from young, and he was actually responsible for Nathan Lyon in a lot of ways. So,
right, of course.
Yeah, and
I know Brendan. I used to coach Brendan, Nathan's brother.
Yeah, Brendan
for a while. Yeah.
Well, Brendan's a great friend as well. So we're going to have this so-called cricket fan / tragic on the land. I'm going to go to various locations. So I'll drag you into Craig's place when he's there. Of course. Maybe not drag, but I'll bring you there.
I'll come and have a coffee with you. Yeah, it'd be lovely.
All right. So that's the plan. So I'll let some of these viewers may want to watch the next session starting at after lunch. This is effectively our lunch without a lunch. If we're having a lunch together. I mean, if you provided sandwiches, I would have been happier, but you clearly didn't. So you missed the brief. So all right. So
I'll talk to you at the end of the match, eh?
Okay. All right. Well, not so much today, but more so tomorrow.
Yeah, sure. Whenever you're ready. And remember, I'm the only man who ever bowled a 16-yard beamer to Tomo, so we can bring that up if he's on the same program.
Oh well, I hope he doesn't get too angry. Actually, he might.
But he's a long way away. It's a long way to get to Bowral.
Yeah, he's in Queensland these days.
That's
all right, Barry.
Okay.
I want to thank you for your time. It's
Pleasure.
been amazing. Now that we've got the technicalities of the modern age sorted, and you know what you're doing there.
Well, I am 83, so it's a bit hard for me to work out a smartphone. Let's be fair.
But you did a great job, and we must thank Aparna Saini, shouldn't we?
Oh, yes.
She helped you out greatly.
Yeah.
And you wait until you see her. She's a lovely lady, and she'll be very happy to see you on. Well, I'll bring it in a barrel as well when we're down there.
Terrific. I'll buy you some lunch. Okay.
Wonderful. So until tomorrow, Barry, thank you very much for your time.
All right. Bye-bye.
And all the viewers, Norman Kochnek here on Eyes on Cricket with Norman Kochnek, a very leisurely discussion with Barry. We've only touched the surface of things we can talk with Barry, and we'll interact with him and the many people that he knows very well. So thanks again, Barry. All the best. Viewers, go back to your next session. Thank you.